champions of the just. And the stars stood still, the winds did quiet, and all animals of earth and air held their breath. All was silent in prayer and thanks.
여기서도 징집하는 애 하나 있는데. 로더링. 근데 마을 왔다 갔다 하면서 퀘스트 뜨는 걸 못 본 것 같은데. 원래 이렇게 바깥으로 멀리 나갔어야 됐나? 남쪽에 출구가 없긴 했는데.
Bad dreams, huh? Well, it is real, sort of. You see, part of being a Grey Warden is being able to hear the Darkspawn. That's what your dream was, hearing them. The Archdemon, it talks to the Horde, and we feel it just as they do. That's why we know this is really a blight. I don't know if it's really a dragon, but it sure looks like one. But yes, that's the Archdemon. It takes a bit, but eventually you can block the dreams out. Some of the older Grey Wardens say they can understand the Archdemon a bit, but I sure can't. Anyhow, when I heard you thrashing around, I thought I should tell you. It was scary at first for me too. I know, I've just been so distracted with the, you know, massacre of all my friends and the war and all that. Sorry. Anyhow, you're up now, right? Let's pull up camp and get a move on.
쟤네 나랑 같이 안 움직인다 그러더니. 아, 호감도 까였어.
You're a hard man to find. Where are my manners? The name is Levy. Levy Dryden. Did Duncan ever mention me? Levy of the coins? Levy the trader? Really? He never told you of old Levy? We've known each other for years. But here I am carrying on while you have a blight to stop. Don't want to waste your time. But you see, Duncan promised that together we'd look into something important for the Wardens. And for me. But poor Duncan's... well, no more. A tragedy it is, at that. But I know he would want his work carried on. His pledge fulfilled. As you know, my family's name is mud around noble circles. My great-great-grandmother, Sophia Dryden, was the last Warden commander of Ferelden back when the Wardens were known as freeloaders. So King Olin banished the Wardens, and he took House Dryden's land and titles. Hard to say. After King Arlen died, there was a civil war, loads worse than this one. And our family was on the run, hunted by enemies, with nary a friend in the world. But Drydens are tough. We rebuilt, became merchants, and we never lost our pride. Our family's only crime was guarding the kingdom against the Blight. We're not ashamed of that. I ask for the truth. My family reveres Sophia Dryden. We know she died at the old Grey Warden base, Soldier's Peak. We want evidence to clear her name. It won't restore our land or our titles, but it'll
이
restore
퀘스트도
our
RP
honor.
기억난다.
Well, no one's been to Soldier's Peak since Arlen's days. At least none that's come back. I spent years mapping the maze of tunnels to the peak, and I found the way a few years back. So I went to Duncan, I did, and I said that he could reclaim the old base and my family could have its honor. Darkspawn surfaced in southern Ferelden, and Duncan got plenty busy recruiting new wardens and meeting with good King Cailan. Duncan said he would help after the Battle of Ostagar. Said there might be useful things at the peak, but he never had the chance. Soldier's Peak is strategic and symbolic importance. Duncan said that it would be worth it right there. He also hoped to recover lost Warden history and perhaps a few old relics. No one knows what's up there now. 1,000 blessings upon you, Warden. I'll mark down the location on your map. When you arrive,
이게
we'll pick
지금 할
our
수
way
있는
through the
난이도구나.
tunnels together.
Ah, it's good to see you, my timely rescuer. Bodon Fennick, at your service once again. I saw your camp and thought to myself, what safer place to rest for the evening than in the camp of a Grey Warden? I'm perfectly willing to offer you a fine discount for the inconvenience of our presence. How does that sound? Good? Yes? I can see why you might be suspicious, being a Grey Warden and all. Were I in your shoes, I would feel the same way. Trust me when I say that my encountering you here was serendipity and nothing more. I travel a lot, so I'm bound to meet everyone on the road eventually. If you prefer, I'll take my boy and be on my way. But regretfully, you're the safest spot on this road, without a doubt.
풀영상보다 편집본이 더 빨리 오고 재밌다고요? 편집본이요?
I'm sure you'll be pleased with the goods my boy and I have collected, and with your discount.
화살 끼니까 무기 벗어버리네? 에이, 이게 더 맞다.
Hello.
The boy's a bit simple, but he's rather good with enchantments.
뭔 편집본?
One of those tranquil fellas actually called him a... what was it now? A savant. I had no idea such a thing existed.
룬 작업?
He can fold lyrium into almost any weapon or piece of armor, though naturally some of the more extravagant materials will take more lyrium than others. It's a process that some of the master smiths back in Orzammar will perform, but my boy here is just as adept at it. Isn't that right, boy?
Enchantment!
And there you have it.
Enchantment!
and your friends are formidable folk, indeed. It's good to have you along on the road. I suppose since you told me about you being a Grey Warden, it's only fitting for me to be as open. I am originally from Orzammar, the famed dwarven city that lies beneath the stately Frostback Mountains. I was a merchant there, too. Merchant caste. These things are in the blood, you know. You can't just leave them behind. I ran a fairly successful business. Rare artifacts, you know. Old things, grand things. The nobles loved them. Reminded them of the lost glory days, I suppose. One day, a noble woman came to my store. She looked around for a bit and then started shrieking in dismay. Apparently, she believed that a pair of braces I had for sale once belonged to her brother. He'd been lost in a cave-in, you see, while on an expedition to clear out the Darkspawn from one of the tunnels running close to the city. They were made specially for him. They're unique, she shrieked. He stole them from my poor brother's corpse. She had me arrested on the spot, of course. Nobles, they're touchy like that.
진짜 훔쳤어요?
Well, I didn't steal them. You see, I'd been paying these castless thugs to venture out into the deep roads for me.
장무라비 하다
The lost
걸렸네.
ties. They're full of things that people left behind. Sometimes you can find a treasure. Something worth a little gold. To the nobles it is. They believe everything in the Tigers belongs to the house that once dwelled there, even if it's in ruins and they haven't seen it in generations. The noblewoman, she wasn't too happy with the theft of her brother's braces. I don't know what they planned for me, and I didn't want to find out. Bribed the guard that was watching me and took off for the surface first opportunity I got. Never looked back. Yes, here I am. Now, is there anything the boy or I can get you?
시체에서 물건 루팅하는 거는 저도 하는 일 아니냐고요? 무슨 소리예요? 저는 주인 없는 물건을 잠깐 보관하는 건데.
Look, we don't rob people, all right? We don't take things from people that need them. The things in the Lost Tigers, what good did they do lying there? I brought them back to Orzammar, where people could look at them and remember. It's not all that different up here. There are places long abandoned by the humans everywhere. Even more now with the Darkspawn coming.
불실물은 일정 기간 내에 주인이 찾지 않으면 습득자가 갖는 것이에요.
People flee from the Blight with good reason, but they forget things. Things with value and meaning. They leave them behind because they're frightened and desperate. And sometimes, my boy and I, we find our way to these places before the Horde descends, and we save these things. I take them away so the Darkspawn don't get them. Is that so bad? They destroy everything they touch. No, of course not. And when it ends, I will go back to finding ruins, or move on. I don't really have much of a choice. Ah, yes. I'm married to a fine woman back in
티자님
Denver.
목소리는
It's
언제
true.
들어도
She gave me
좋군요.
some she could,
덕분에
but,
잠이
that's
옵니다.
not likely to ever be.
숙박비 입금
Sandal
기피.
here.
감사합니다.
I found him in the deep roads years ago. Abandoned, I think. And he was never quite right in the head. I took him in, and I brought him with me when I came here to the surface. He may not be my blood, true, but I think of him as one.
We left Orzammar.
That's right, boy. Maybe one day we'll see it again. Better than him living in mud and hiding from Darkspawn and Deepstalkers, isn't it? I was glad to take him in. It's not as if I don't benefit, mind you. Turns out the boy's a natural working with enchantments. He might have even been lyrium-addled. I never thought of that before, to be honest. Happens sometimes. He can work an enchantment into just about anything, however, given some time. Could probably open his own shop, if he knew how.
Enchantment.
Well, he does seem to enjoy it, at least. I hear news from Denerim that Tyrn Loghain has been declared the new regent. It makes sense, his daughter being the queen. That's what I've heard on the road, anyhow. Take it for what it is. I hear tell they held a funeral in Denerim for King Keelan. The Grand Cleric called for a full day of mourning, and there was a procession a mile long passing by the brazier.
참 저기 다시 가볼 수 있는데 지금 갈 수 있나?
What happened to him at the hands of those creatures, it's unthinkable.
저 시체
That's
찾으러
what
갈
I've
수
heard on the
있거든.
road, anyhow. Take it for what it is. Some folks aren't happy about Tyrn Loghain being named Regent. There are rumors he had something to do with the king's death. Isn't that the most ridiculous thing you ever heard? The Darkspawn killed him, sure enough. If Tyrn Loghain couldn't save the king from that inn, then nobody could. That's what I've heard on the road, anyhow. Take it for what it is. I hear the Dwarven king is passed on. Old as he was probably poisoned or assassinated. That's how
저기도
the
스토리
dwarves
진행되나
normally
보네.
go out, isn't it? That's what I've heard on the road, anyhow. There's knights from Redcliffe spread all over Ferelden on some kind of mission, but I hear that they're starting to become rare to find.
아니 뭐 이렇게
Maybe
동네
they all
소문을
went back
잘
to
하셔요.
Redcliffe. More likely they got tired of searching for something that can't be found and abandoned their search. I wonder what Earl Eamon is going to do without any knights. That's what I've heard on the road, anyhow. Thank the Maker we didn't lose Tyrn Loghain at Ostergard. He pulled his troops out just in time, so it said. Without him, we'd be lost. That's what I've heard on the road, anyhow. Something's going on at the Major's Tower at Lake Callanhod. Nobody knows exactly what, though, and the Templars
야,
aren't saying.
퀘스트로 진행하는 내용 다
Exactly
알고
what we
있네.
need, isn't it? That's what I've heard. I heard from some travelers that something bad might have happened in Red. That's what I've heard. There's talk that King Kaelin was cheating on the Queen and she found out about it. That's why Tyrn Loghain abandoned Kaelin at Ostergard. That's what I've heard on the road, anyhow. With King Kaelin dead, the throne falls to Queen Anora. She's made her
이번만
father
계속
the
누르면 이
regent,
게임 엔딩
however,
볼
at
수 있는 거
least for
아니고.
now. I think Kaelin's father, old King Merritt,
알아서
would
스토리
approve.
진행되는 거 아니야?
That's what I've heard on the road. Some hunters who range into the Brazilian forest say that a Dalish clan there has fallen to some kind of sickness. The Blight, most likely, poor sods. That's what I've heard on the road, anyhow. I hear from folks traveling the East Roads that werewolves
아니,
in the
모르는 게
Brazilian
없어.
forest, actual werewolves. They haven't been around since the days of Dane. That's what I've heard on... There's a nasty rumour going around that the Grey Wardens are evil and that they worship the Archdemon. They're the ones that caused the blight. They were getting upset, see? That there was no use for them anymore. So they summoned up the Archdemon to do
저건
their
로게인이
bidding.
퍼뜨렸겠네.
It would explain a great many things. That's what I've heard on the road, anyhow. I hear that Tyrn Loghain, the regent, is calling for new levies of troops. He wants to rebuild the army we lost at Ostergard. Thing is, there's not a lot of spare men to be found. Out at Dragon's Peak, there's press gangs roaming around, grabbing any free man they can lay their hands on. That's what I've heard on the road, anyhow. The crafters of the Pearl Brothel are threatening to close their doors if they aren't
진짜
finally
엔딩까지 얘기
recognized
다
as a true
해주겠는데?
guild. Ha! Can you imagine? As if the men weren't blue enough. That's what I've heard on the road, anyhow. I've heard a lot of stories of bands of Darkspawn roaming the countryside far north of the Kokori Wilds. They just seem to appear out of nowhere and disappear just as fast. That's what I've heard on the road, anyhow. Habron, daughter of the Earl of Southreach, has spent an exorbitant amount of her father's coin buying puppies. No one knows what happens to the puppies, and she buys a new one every week. That's what I've heard on the road, anyhow. I'm hearing many tales of corpses clawing out of their graves all over. Not just people either, animals too.
대사 종류
Just
좀 봐.
yesterday, a farmer told me about the kitten his daughter had buried behind his barn. Little thing came back to life and crawled up, mewling as loud as you please. His daughter was delighted, at least until it just about chewed her finger off. Strange days, I tell you. That's what I've heard on the road, anyhow. I've heard a rumor that the reason Queen Anora has never produced an heir is that she's barren. It's a curse from the Maker for bringing a commoner into the royal line. Until someone of royal blood is put on the throne, there will never be an heir. It seems the royal line of Callanhod has been broken for good, no? That's what I've heard on the road, anyhow. Arl Urien wasn't truly killed at Ostergard. His son, Lord Von, hired Antivan crows to
세상에.
kill
아니,
his
이거
father
얘 대사
before
종류가 왜
he
이렇게
ever
많아?
reached the battlefield, only to first be killed by a mob of elves himself. That's what I've heard on the road, Annie. I heard a strange rumor the other day. King Caleb was not really Merrick's son, you see. Merrick's real son is hidden in the bowels of Denham's palace and has been since he was born. I suppose they feed him cakes all day to keep him content. Maybe he's simple. Or a mage. Merrick's real son, a mage. Can you imagine?
That's
아니
what I've heard on the road.
마당발 수준이
Take
아니야.
it from me. Unless that he sold the young Orlesian woman that married Earl Eamon. I hear tell she tried to poison her husband so she could marry his brother, Bantegan. Maker's honest truth.
That's what I've heard on the road, anyhow.
I don't know what to tell you.
아 이제 소재
Nothing I
고갈이
can think of at the
됐어.
moment.
What do you wish of me? If you must. I was not born such. 'Tis a skill of Flemeth's, taught over many years in the wilds. The chastened have tales of we witches, saying that we assume the forms of creatures to watch them from hiding. When a child is alone and separate from his tribe, that is when we strike, dragging the young boy kicking and screaming to our lair to be devoured. A most amusing legend. Changing her form, certainly. Devouring lost children, I cannot say. She has not done it in my experience, though in truth my lifespan is but a fraction of her own. Why do you ask? Is there something specific you wish to know? The form of an animal is different from my own. One may study the creature, learn to move as it does, think as it
하필
does.
2D를 타도
In
막
time,
2D를 타다니.
this allows one to become as it is. I gain nothing by studying another human. I already am the same as they are. I learn nothing.
아마
So
얘
the answer
트레일러에
is
속아가지고
no, my
변신
human
테크
form
탄
is
사람
the
많을
only
거야.
one I possess. Anyone with sufficient will, but the act of transformation is a magical one. 'Tis a spell and thus requires a mage's talents. If you had a notion to learn such a skill for yourself, sadly, you must remain disappointed. There were nights when the wilds called to me, 'tis true. You look upon the world around you and you think you know it well. I have smelled it as a wolf, listened as a cat, prowled shadows that you never dreamed existed. But my life is as a human. I am under no illusions to the contrary. They do not shy away from me. To their senses, I believe I seem like any other of their species. As to what they think, I truly cannot say. Just as I am still human, no matter my form, they are still animals. Thus they cannot speak, even were I to ask. No, 'tis not unheard of in the remote corners of the world. There are traditions of magic outside of the circle of magi, despite what those mages would have you believe. Some of these traditions are old, indeed, passed down as carefully guarded lore from one generation to the next. The zealots of the Chantry would uproot all such practitioners if they could. But as luck have it, some still exist. My mother is such a one. Not all apostates use the forbidden blood arts. Maleficarum do, but to condemn all who do not fall under the circle's thrall for the sake of what might be is a dangerous path to walk. There are those who look on the word apostate as meaning freedom. Indeed. Have you an opinion on my abilities, then? Am I an unnatural abomination to be put to the torch?
그래도 좀 비 맞춰줘야지.
Oh, you're simply full of surprises, little man, aren't you? But enough of such talk. Let us proceed, lest the dust gather on us.
호감도가 증가했습니다.
What do you wish of me? We are in camp, so 'tis as good a time as any.
모리건 같은 인간도 연애한다고? 모리건이 어때서?
I am here because Flemeth commanded me to aid you. Why? Do you wish me to leave? I can do so if you prefer.
아 왜 급발진하고 그래요?
Then I assume our discussion ends here.
그거 한번 물어봤다고.
Why are we stopping? There are Darkspawn to be fought. Is this delay needful? You are concerned. No need. I am fit enough to fight. No. People are not simple. They cannot be summarized for easy reference in the manner of, the elves are a lithe, pointy-eared people who excel at poverty. I am. Decide. I am a Sten of the Beresad. I did not choose to be who I am any more than you did. The Antam are the eyes, hands, and mouth of the Qunari. We are how my people know the world. No, I didn't. Yes. There is no point to this. We are keeping the Darkspawn waiting. What a strange language you speak. You say hurry, where I would say duty. No, it is yours, and you are chatting with me instead. As you wish.
홈드가 올랐어. 알 수 없는 애들이야 진짜.
Yes. Well, here I am. I knew this would come up sooner or later. I don't know how to explain, but I had a dream. In it, there was an impenetrable darkness. It was so dense, so real. And there was a noise, a terrible, ungodly noise. I stood on a peak and watched as the darkness consumed everything. And when the storm swallowed the last of the sun's light, I fell, and the darkness drew me in. When I woke, I went to the Chantry's gardens, as I always do. But that day, the rose bush in the corner had flowered. Everyone knew that bush was dead. It was grey and twisted and gnarled, the ugliest thing you ever saw. But there it was, a single beautiful rose. It was as though the Maker stretched out his hand to say, even in the midst of this darkness, there is hope and
얘 좀
beauty.
이상해.
Have faith. No, not voices. It's not so simple. He spoke directly to my soul, in a language no human tongue can express. There are so many good things in the Maker's world. How can I sit by while the Blight devours everything? I don't know. He made this world. He could destroy it. But there is so much worth saving. You're such a pessimist.
호감도 까이는 거 봐. 아니, 지가 제대로 설득을 해야지.
Well, here I am. What is meant by someone like me? Did you think I was always a cloistered sister? The Chantry provides succor and safe harbor to all who seek it. I chose to stay and become affirmed. I was a traveling minstrel in Orlais. Tales and songs were my life. I performed, and they rewarded me with applause and coin. And my skill in battle? Well, you pick up different skills when you travel, yes?
말
Yes,
돌리는구만.
of course. Let's move on. Yes. Well, here I am.
근데 로그는 이렇게 얘기했는데도 그냥 바로 얘기를 해버리네. 밀정이었다고.
Of course I do. I love stories far too much to keep them to myself. Everyone should be able to benefit from them, I think. Chantry law says it is man's pride that created the Darkspawn. In ages past, the mages of the Tevinter Imperium ruled much of the world we know. In their pride, they thought their magics invincible and imagined that they were greater than the Maker himself. So thinking, they invaded his golden city, planning to take it for themselves and depose their own creator. But they were impure and full of sin. And it is with the sin that they tainted the